Oh, they may be playing football, and the crowd is yelling, kill the referee. But no matter what the score, when the clock strikes 4, everything stops for tea.
Hi and welcome to Spill the Tea, the show for British expats, those thinking of becoming expats, and anyone who just loves all things British. My name's Ian.
And I'm Sam, and you can expect entertainment, interviews, features, and everything British. And on today's show, we're doing a double dose of What Are You Like?
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of, it's the show for, basically the reason why we put the show together. It's about British expats, it's for British expats, and that's what we're focusing on today.
That's our community.
It is.
So yeah, it's going to be an interesting show today.
I know, I'm excited.
Yeah. So what have you been up to, Ian? What have you been up to?
What have I been up to? Well, this past weekend, I actually went up to the mountains. I became a mountain man.
Hence
for a couple of days.
Yeah. Did you chop some? Can't speak. Chop some logs.
I did that. Yeah, that too. No, it was great. And my friend, who's also British, there's a theme going here, isn't there?
There is a little theme.
He has a cabin up in Duck Creek, Utah.
Okay.
And it's a beautiful, beautiful little village. And his community is right out in the mountains. So he's got this, literally this log cabin.
Camet. You put the wrong teeth in today as well.
Both of us. And we just went up there. You just relax. You kick back.
Yeah.
You go for he's got the ATVs and the sort of side-by-side type thing. So you go trailing, and it's just colder now. I mean, it's cold. Obviously, it's up.
Feels good though, doesn't it?
It is, and it's fall as well, or autumn.
Autumn,
as we should say.
Yes, it's autumn.
So the colours up there are crazy. They're just beautiful.
Do you find you automatically don't use your phone?
I would like to say that.
Okay.
No, I do.
Do you limit it a little bit?
No, I do. And usually it takes a few more days. If I'm going to be going away, like day one, it steps back. I mean, you have to detox. We have companies to run. And
a little bit,
but yeah, I can definitely step away from that.
Yeah. You need that though. Everybody needs that.
That's true.
You need a break. You need to be quiet. But talking of phones, there's an update on the iPhone, the new iPhone. I don't know if you've seen it. It's on the keyboard.
I think it did it automatically, but I don't really
Right,
know.
So instead of having to type, you don't have to do that anymore. You'll literally slide your finger from letter to letter.
Yeah, but I'm not going to do that.
It's fast, Ian.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm so used to...
I'm telling you now, you'll adopt it. It's so fast. It's much faster than typing. It's quite amazing, really, when you think about it.
I'm a late adopter.
Oh, I'm quite an early adopter with that kind of stuff, I have to say, yeah. I love technology, though. But I do like to detox, though, where I go, that's it, no social media for a week. If it's my business, I'll pre-schedule stuff, but I just... It's a lot.
You can't do that now because we have to post every week on the flipping social media.
We do. And if you haven't followed us yet, you can find us everywhere. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can now find the show on Spotify, iHeartRadio.
Yes. Tune in,
Spreaker.
Apple Podcasts. Carrier Pigeon. There should actually be one called Carrier Pigeon, really. Let's face it. That would be good.
Kind of a good name there.
Yeah.
But you can find us anywhere. And, of course, on YouTube as well. If you
and, of course, on YouTube. And, of course, at our website, which is www.spillthetealive.com.
And that's the hub.
It is our hub. It's our home. Show. So if you need to find us or find out more about us, all the shows are posted there as well as, of course, all the other places.
And all our links to our guests that have been on the show as well.
Yes, exactly.
So you can find us everywhere, but sometimes I think you just have to limit. And a great thing happened on Britain's Got Talent. I don't know if you saw. Do you watch the show? Do you?
Not really. Britain's Got Talent. No. I have seen some America's Got Talent.
Well, the winners were Twist and Pulse, two guys that danced. Kind of cheeky. Some of their stuff is really funny, but they use a lot of multimedia type of stuff. It's dance, but it's not. Oh, here's a great piece of music, and then they just dance like nutcases from beginning to end. There's real stories, woven in throughout the performances. One of them, they actually did breakdancing to the theme tune of EastEnders.
It seems like a natural fit.
Is that amazing? But this is what I thought was really interesting. So we're talking about, unwinding, decompressing, those kind of things, is that they did a part of the show was silent. The show was silent. And this is what it was about, is to talk about mental health improving mental health. So think about it. You go for dinner, everybody's on the phones. I mean, everybody's always on the phones, our computers, but this is what they did. So Anton Deck, and who doesn't love Anton Deck? I mean, they're just...
He's had issues.
Yeah, exactly. So he totally relates to...
Antor Deck. I'm not sure which one it is.
It's... I don't know which one it is.
I know which one it is by sight, but...
Yes. But they urge viewers to open up to each other about mental health. And they interrupted Britain's Got Talent to launch this new mental wellness campaign. And it's backed by a host of ITV stars. So you've got Dermot O'Leary, Gordon Ramsay, Gino D'Acampo, Philip Schofield, Holly Willoughby, Jonathan Ross, Maylene Klass, and Amanda Holden. And that's some of them that are supporting this. And it's a 5-year program. And what they want to do is aim to improve the mental and physical health of some 10,000 people. Because what they're saying is that that in the last 15 years, this is staggering actually, in the last 15 years, there's been a 48% rise in anxiety and depression amongst British children. That is just terrible.
It doesn't surprise me.
No, I don't think it does. I think.
But what do you think the cause of that is?
Oh, I think it's a lot of things. I think social media put a lot of pressure on kids.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think it puts a lot of pressure on people in general.
I think it does.
You know, the comparisons, the bullying that's escalated. You know, comparing yourself to each other. I mean, that's too much for kids. It's enough for adults, and they can't even cope with it.
And just distribution, just the ability to say something. Words are powerful.
Very powerful.
You know, if you're not using those powers for good.
Yes.
Then you've got a platform that is like a bullhorn. You know, you can just launch it out. And so, you know, for kids, you know, it's just too easy to be able to be mean. And
it is.
Unfortunately, that happens, and I wish it didn't.
It is. It's awful.
Because the byproduct is basically what you're talking about.
Yeah, and you know, kids commit suicide. Not to be on a down or anything, but I think it was such an important thing that they used this platform of Britain's Got Talent. So what they did is they just went silent, and what they told people to do was, we're going to go silent, turn to the person next to you, with a family member or friend, and start talking. You know, start talking with each other. And when you think about it, people aren't talking that much. They are communicating through their devices.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference in that. So
huge.
Ant McPartlin, he said, we all know that these days there are more distractions than ever because we are looking at the telly or we're looking at our phones. But it is important for our mental well-being to remember to get together with people we care and talk to them. You know, whether it's, I'm a big let's go for a coffee kind of person.
Right.
And I really enjoy sitting down and doing small conversation with small groups, or even just one-on-one more than anything.
Yeah.
I love a good old conversation. You know, that's why we're doing this show as well. But I think it also helps you connect with people because often you don't. You think you've connected. I mean, you say, I'll see you on Facebook.
Well,
it's crazy.
And you know what people are doing. And if you do see them, you go, oh, I see you've done this, this, this,
yes.
this, and this.
You feel like you've participated in their life.
You do.
But you haven't.
No, not at all. And it's really, I don't know, the disconnect we've never been more connected, but we've never been
more disconnected at the same time.
Exactly.
It's the weirdest thing.
But also our schedules are so much tighter now, and there's so much more we have to do.
We're cramming so much, and we're trying to do...
You don't just pick up the phone and talk to somebody, do you?
No. If someone calls me, I go, oh!
How dare you?
No, what are you doing? Why are you calling me? You know, just text me. But I think particularly for people that work for themselves, like us, entrepreneurs, and you're doing everything for your business, from the social media to, you know, booking guests to whatever it is, it's never ending.
Right.
And I think there's always that, it might be 9 o'clock at night, but I need to deal with that.
I've started doing those voice texts just because you maybe start to do those. You like those.
I do like the voice. It's not talk to text because talk to text does not understand our accents.
You record the memo,
but
right?
I do record the memo.
I like it. It's cool.
I do. I think it's... you know what I found is a lot of my friends... You know how we had Daniel Emmett on the show?
Yes.
And you've got people messaging you on Instagram and, you know, trying to get back to them. The voice message thing is great because fans love that. They like to actually hear your voice, and it's quicker for you.
Well, yeah.
So it's a win-win for everybody on that. But I think it is hard to, you know, limit at times what you're supposed to be doing on social media and all those things. When you do work for yourself, it's difficult. But I think we need to do it.
Yeah, no, I think this is a great... a great thing that they're doing.
I love that it's a 5-year program. I mean, they're going to reach a lot of people, and there are going to be ads that constantly play to bring people, you know, bring some awareness to it. But when you do think about it, and I'm not a person that reaches out for help from anybody at all. But when you actually do, or you share something that's stressing you out, you actually do feel a little bit better about it. Like, because people can give you some words of wisdom, or like, oh, I went through that, you'll be fine, why don't you try this?
As a post, you mean?
As in one-on-one with people.
One-on-one. Yeah.
You do feel better for actually sharing stuff with the people.
It's just, I mean, I think in a way it's an attention span as well.
Yeah,
that's really one of the big problems.
Yeah.
I mean, we are, for good, bad, or otherwise, I mean, what we do here with the show, we go live on Facebook.
Yeah.
And our shows tend to go on for about 3 days per show, which goes against every single kind of thing that they say.
Yes.
You're supposed to do with a social media show, or any kind of piece. It's people want it like 15 seconds.
Yeah.
But
we're a little bit different.
We are a little bit
This is the
different.
Conversation that we're talking about. That
people
should be having.
We challenge our audience to be more attentive for a longer period of time. Sit down, have a cup of tea.
Yes.
Join us in whatever. We haven't got a candy snack this week.
No.
Oh man.
Did you say candy? Sweeties.
Oh dear.
Sweeties and chocolate.
Take me away. Hang me.
Well, I think we converted Daniel Emmett over to the British chocolate. He liked that walnut whip last week.
He did.
He loved that.
Did. Yeah.
Or the week before, or whenever he was on the show. I can't remember.
Exactly.
But what kind of stuff do you do to like decompress though? Like you say, you went to the mountains, but if you're not going to the mountains, what do you do?
I like to go out to the lake.
Yeah. I forgot you have
people have boats out there, and we have boats out.
Very nice.
So I like to do that. So just anything by the water is good for me.
Yes, nature.
Yeah.
I sometimes get that feeling like I've got to go to the beach. I just have to go to the beach, put my feet in the ocean,
right?
And you feel so much better. But they did that in the Victorian times, didn't they? The doctors would prescribe you need to take the waters or take to the sea air, because the minerals and everything made you feel good. But for me, it's like I say, sometimes just put my phone down, being with my dogs, going on a nice walk that's quiet, where it's really beautiful, and breathing. And although we don't like technology that much because it can stress you out, I must admit that breathe thing on the iWatch is really good.
That always it always says that to me.
And you don't breathe.
Yeah. No, it always pops up at
when you should be breathing.
The moment, like almost bar none, like a moment where it knows, like, dude,
come on,
you got to chill out.
You've got to breathe.
Yeah.
And you do feel better when you actually just slow down.
Yeah.
You know?
And but again, this was not. I'm working towards a tenuous link here, by the way.
Go on.
This was not how it used to be. Back in the day when you didn't even have your landline. Perhaps you just didn't have a cell phone.
And if you progressed to a pager, woohoo, you were fancy. You were fancy if you had a pager.
Bless them. So, yes, tenuous link to our first guest.
Go on.
But back in a time when things were a little different.
Yeah.
The world was very different. So the last few weeks, my mum has somehow either been referred to or has actually been on this show.
She's been the star of the show.
She has, in one way or another. And, one of the things I've actually kind of wanted to do with her for a long time is to interview her, actually, because she was a little girl during the Second World War. Mm-hmm. She grew up on the outskirts of London.
Wow.
On the flight path between Biggin Hill and the coast. So everything went over the house,
the house
she grew up in. So I felt it would just be a really great opportunity to hear some of these stories and to share some of those stories.
Live through that, yeah.
Whether you remember them, whether you heard them from your parents or grandparents, these are things that we should be reminded of.
I think we should be, to see where we've come from.
Absolutely, because, first of all, I mean, it would never be like that again, but as a reminder that life isn't just all about, how important the last text message was or the last Facebook post was. That's right,
yeah. And what your parents have lived through is very different.
And what they lived through. I mean, our biggest dramas today are exactly that. Somebody dissing us on for social media. Right. Theirs was, am I going to get a bomb dropped on me?
On my house, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So with that,
I think that's great.
I sat down with my mum, Anne, and we had a good chat. Take a look. You were 6 years old at the beginning of the war, right?
No, 5 actually,
5.
darling. I was born in 1934 and it was 39.
Right.
So when it broke out, September 39.
In Sutton, in
Living
Surrey,
in
the London
Sutton,
borough of Sutton.
London borough. Well, they didn't call it the London borough then. It was just Sutton and Cheam.
Right.
And our address technically was Cheam.
So what was it? Paint a picture of what it was like at that time.
Well, I mean, just before the war, it was a very quiet little suburb outside London. Everyone was quietly getting on with their lives, I imagine, And then one Sunday morning, I realised that my parents and my grandparents were all rushing about, obviously very upset, very worried. And then I realised later, of course, they'd just had the news from, I think it was Chamberlain, that we were at war with Germany, so this was the start of it. But
and what do you remember being like the first things that made you feel, okay, things have changed?
Well, the first things I think, was that they put up air raid sirens. And they have a particular wail that when it's the warning signal, it kind of waves up and down. And the all clear is a long, straight note. I think that's the right way around. And that became a sort of thing that controlled your life a bit, because once the air raid warnings went off, you had to get to a shelter as quickly as you could.
Right.
I mean, I was at home, small girl with my parents. My father started building the most amazing air raid shelter.
In the back garden?
In our back garden. We had quite a large shed at the bottom of the garden, and it had a concrete area, and my father sort of started digging a big hole there, and in the end it finished up like a cellar that was big enough for my parents and myself and my older brother to have. There were 4 bunks down there that we could sleep on, but you got down to it through a manhole cover. I mean, it was quite a scary sort of place to get into. Yeah. You went down these rungs, and because, I mean, it wasn't built ideally, there was a sump at the bottom of the stairs which continually drew water, so you were always, it was always being cleaned out. Yeah. And down there we had a heater. I mean, I think we had some way my father worked out a primus that my mother could boil a kettle for a hot drink. But we were only down there when the sirens were on at night, and to start with, that didn't happen. But when the bombing of London started, we had to get down there most nights. Sometimes, I can't remember exactly, 7 o'clock-ish in the evening, maybe a little earlier. But because we were that close to London, we could hear everything that was going on. When a bomb goes into the ground, the vibrations go out for miles. You feel it in the earth almost, it's an odd feeling. Yes, we knew that London was suffering with bombing. And in the mornings, you would get up and you would see smoke, things like that. It was quite scary. And if we were late getting down at night, you could see the fires of London from where we lived. There was a light in the sky, which now you only get it on Guy Fawkes night or something like that, where there's a lot of big bonfires and things going on. Then it was people's homes, buildings in London that were on fire.
Where Sutton is in relation to London and in relation to the coast, the coast of France, Dover.
Yeah.
You were pretty much on a direct line with Biggin Hill.
We were pretty well. Yeah, the squadrons used to come over.
So Biggin Hill being the main
for our bit
base?
Of England, Biggin Hill was a big air base. And in the evenings, sometimes, as it was getting dusk and that, you would see squadrons going out, and that's 12 planes in formation.
Like multiple squadrons, right?
Multiple squadrons. You would see the smaller planes going, and then you would hear the big bombers going out later in the war. The ones with the bombs, basically. The smaller ones that went out first were the protection, the defence. But those little planes also went over to France.
So sort of like Spitfire type of things?
Spitfires and Hurricanes. And it's funny, even to this day, if And it's very rare now because there's very few of them flying.
Right.
But if a hurricane flew over, I could say to you, that's a hurricane.
Right.
Because that sound is so deeply ingrained in your ears.
Yeah.
And it's like, even now in films and that, when I hear a siren going off, I kind of get goose pimples.
The squadrons went out, and
Yeah.
you'd hear them going
Yeah,
out
you would
in
hear
the
them
evenings,
out.
like
Oh,
dusk.
yes, yeah.
So,
And then in the mornings, early mornings, you would hear them coming back. And my father always made a point of being in the garden, watching and listening. And it was sad because you would see 2 or 3 and maybe another 2 and an odd one. They didn't come back in good formation, and there would be a lot of missing numbers.
right.
I don't remember it so much with the big planes, but it was the little fighters and that, you know. And one day over our area, I don't know what the German plane was, whether it was, were they Messerschmitts, the small ones? I think they were.
Yeah, I think
think
so.
they were.
Heinkels were.
Or Heinkel, it could have been one of those, but
Right.
there was their small equivalent of our small planes as well, of our
Yeah.
Spitfires and that. I mean, my father was so protective. I can't even believe this happened, but I remember it vividly. We stood in our garden and watched a dog fight, because that's what they were called,
Wow.
in the sky. And you could hear the diving and that, and there was a German plane up there.
It was probably a little bit off course, because something sort of south.
It was, but then they did
west
get
of
off
London.
course. And another day, when we were walking back up our lane, which was Gander Green Lane in Cheam, a German aircraft, like a small one, actually flew very low, right up the road.
Oh wow.
I mean, it was that close that Mum and I fell on the ground.
Yeah.
But when we saw this thing, we knew it wasn't an English one.
No.
And I think he was lost.
Was he in trouble? I mean,
I don't know whether he was in trouble. I don't know if there was smoke coming from his plane or what it was. But this was daytime, and that was pretty rare that you got many in the daytime.
So the house in Gander Green Lane was basically kind of an end of terrace.
It was.
There was about six houses, and
No,
I know
4. There was
4 before the next.
Yes, then there was
They're
a
in
gap.
like blocks of 4. Yeah,
then there was a gap
There
with
was
2
another
little
terrace.
shops, and
Right.
then there was another terrace of about 5 houses.
Right.
And then on the corner up the road, about 150 yards, was a public house.
That's right.
And going down the road, there was a lovely big bungalow, and that was my grandparents' home.
Right.
My
That's right.
my mother's family, you know, because my father came from Northumberland.
Well, and he served in the First World War.
Yes, he was in the First World War, and that's how my parents met, because at the end of the war, he came back and was stationed somewhere near Woolwich, which I believe there were barracks. And of course, everybody had to work during the First World War, and women who'd never been out to work before also had to do what they could. And my mother was a single young woman, and she worked at Woolwich Arsenal.
Oh, right. Oh.
On the, you know, the making of bombs and whatever. Well, not so much bombs, but I think ammunition,
Yeah.
I think was what they made
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
And obviously, somewhere or the other, this little Geordie soldier and my mum met.
Yeah.
And I think he went back up to Northumberland at the end of the war, but he told his
Well,
family.
he played football professionally,
yes.
didn't he?
Well, that was, yes, he went back at the end of the First World War to his home in Blythe in Northumberland.
And he played for Blythe Spartans.
He did.
For
And
which at the time they were a league team. You know, I've actually got.
have you looked it up?
Well, no, I have his original contract as a professional player.
Of course, we found
From
it,
1920 to
didn't we?
1922 was
Yes,
his
we
first
did.
contract,
Yeah, I remember.
and he got
now.
paid £5 a game, which in 1920
Was a lot of money.
was all right.
A lot of money.
It was all right.
I mean, he had a day job, but my dad's football money paid for the petrol for them to drive up and down from Northumberland. No motorways, no good roads. You just took what was going.
Yeah.
Used to take them hours and hours and hours to get down to Surrey to my grandparents.
Oh, I'm sure.
You know, it was a long journey.
In an Austin 7, that's
in
for
an
sure.
Austin 7. And then the Northumbrian grandparents were upset that they didn't get to see me and my brother. So we still did these dreadful journeys up the length of the country in this little car.
So coming back to the war, though,
Yes.
speaking of that, is that they wanted you to be sent up there during the war,
The family
right?
up there wanted the bairn, as they call you, little girls or little children, to go to safety. But, I wasn't going to be separated from my parents. They were kind enough to sort of include me in the conversation, and I made it very clear that there was no way I was going, because if they were going to be killed by a bomb, I was going to be there with them.
Wow.
I was very determined about that.
So when a lot of the kids were being...
I had asthma as a child, and any real...
Did you play it up?
Oh, yes.
You did?
Of course you do. Of course you do. You can't bring on an asthma attack. Well, you can, but I don't think I ever did that. But I might stand there going, sort of reminding them that my breathing was a problem.
Later on in the war, the buzz bombs came into play, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
And given that the street that you lived on were, blocks of terrace houses, did you heard those? What was that experience like?
You heard those coming. They had a particular buzz and a sound, which was unmistakable, and the sirens would have gone off, so you knew something was coming probably. And they used to make this sort of weird noise, but then they would go silent, and then you'd count to about 8. Because
there were petrol-filled bombs, basically, that had bombs attached to a little motor.
It was a bomb, but it was a flying bomb, which was their technical term, I think.
And the premise was that when it ran out of gas, they calculated enough petrol, to
get it to London.
To get it to London, but it wasn't exactly a science; it was more of an approximation.
A lot of those fell outside.
Short or flew over.
Yeah, they really did. They did.
So then it was what is...
In a way, they were more dangerous to the suburbs than the actual major bombing.
So as long as you kept hearing the sound, you were okay?
All the time you could hear the sound, you knew it was passing over and you were safe, but then it would go silent. It would just cut out.
Was it deafening, the silence?
Yes. And everybody counted to about 8 or 9, because that's how long it was before you heard the explosion.
And it was probably... I don't know
Not
what the
so
altitude.
far away.
What
You could see them. You could see them.
So
they
probably
weren't
maybe
that high. No, they weren't that high.
Maybe, a couple of thousand
They weren't
feet.
that high. You could see them.
Yeah. Wow.
I think...
And now did one hit fairly close, didn't it?
Yes, one fell. Oh, I don't know, about 18 inches from our back door and bounced off the concrete.
Well, that was
an incendiary bomb.
That was an incendiary bomb.
That's different again. That was dropped by an aircraft.
Yeah, they were to create the fires. So
for lighting up the area, because we were all lightless,
Yeah.
That was to give them a path in to...
And one dropped on the
concrete at the back of our house, and it made a dent in the concrete, about that sort of size. That sort of round.
You're right in saying he never actually repaired that dent in the concrete.
Dad never touched it. He just
kind of
left it there. It was. But
the buzz bomb, though, didn't one of those come down?
They came very close.
Pretty
they
close.
Actually landed on the pub up the road.
So that's
and
what,
blew its roof.
Less than 100 yards? Maybe 100 yards?
About 100 yards. It blew its roof off.
So really
it was on fire.
Wow.
It
so
was
from that
totally wrecked.
That kind of height that it's flying, the difference between it hitting the pub and, let's say,
minuscule.
The house.
Minuscule.
Is nothing. It's a breeze.
It wasn't meant for us, that one. It didn't have our name on it, so that's how people looked at it.
At the end of the war, what was it like when you realised that all these things that you kind of lived with and kind of grew up with, effectively, because you said you were
I was 5 when the war started.
Through to about 11, 10,
11, yeah.
I mean, those are very formative years. So all of a sudden, these things stopped. I mean, what did that mean to you? How did you
I just don't
work with
know.
that?
I think everybody had a huge sense of relief. It really was. Yes, and there was great celebrating, and the atmosphere lifted, of course, and people were thinking, oh, thank God we've survived it, we're here, things will get better from now on. But of course it did take quite a few years before we had finished with food rationing. That went on for quite a long time. After that, things started to improve. You know, you could buy more clothes. Of course, that was another thing. You couldn't buy clothes much during the war.
Right.
You had to have coupons. And if you ran out of coupons, you couldn't buy anything.
Nice.
Literally. And the same with food, of course. We had food rationing. We all had ration books. Yes, people today, youngsters today, would be appalled at the small quantities that we had, but we got by on.
Of course.
We got by on them, you know. My mum was a super cook, and I don't know how she produced some of the food she did with what she had, to be honest.
Well, thanks, Mum.
You're
Thanks
very
for sharing.
welcome. You're very welcome, darling. Very welcome.
And, now we're sitting here in Las Vegas to get
know.
to tell the story.
I know, at this great age. And if I come back next year, I'll give you the next instalment.
Exactly. You remember some other stuff.
I'll remember some other stuff.
there you
Yeah. Oh, there's a ton more.
I'm sure there is.
more.
Well, until then.
Oh, and one little PS
go
I
on then.
must add, because it was the most important thing to me during the war. As a small girl, I heard my parents talking about Mr. Churchill. Now, if he was all right, he was going to get us through the war. He was going to win the war. This was my parents' faith in him as a leader. So I used to say my prayers every night then. And it used to be, God bless Mummy, Daddy, Edgar, Grandma and Grandad, and Mr. Churchill. Because I thought, well, if he's that important, he needs some help. So I'll add him into my list of people to keep safe, because he'll see us through the war.
That's awesome.
It worked. He did survive the war. And I think he was a huge factor towards our success. That's a personal view, of course, but yeah.
Thanks, Mum.
You're welcome.
Wow, that was
Very
that was
interesting.
cool. Yeah,
Very different life than what any of us are living.
it really is. You know, I mean, you hear those stories, and you just you suddenly realize how different childhood is from then.
Oh gosh, yes.
To our own childhood.
Yeah.
I mean, and compared from like ours to the ones now, it's a completely different world.
And no one can really imagine what that's like.
Yeah. And that's the great thing, to be able to remember these things or to have those kind of kept.
And it's your family history.
It is the family history.
And history is important. I think people forget, once people pass away, they forget to find these stories out about their families, and they try and piece them together after they're gone.
It's trying to get rid of us. You're kicking her off the... Right, yes, because she's about ready.
No, that's not what I'm saying. Hey, on this topic of talking, this is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
People need to talk with their family and their friends.
They do.
Don't try and piece it together after they've gone.
No, exactly.
Talk to them now.
Exactly. Now, and in that, in
I
the
sound
background
completely heartless.
here, yeah, and so moving swiftly on there, you could probably hear a bit of a chuckle from our next guest, huh?
Because we are, oh my gosh, it's going to be that kind of interview. But
It started off all serious and nice and meaningful, this show, and now
I
it's
think
just,
everybody knows what I meant, Ian.
it's all gone downhill now.
It
And it's going
has.
to keep going further downhill, apparently.
It will do, because we are going to do our next segment, and you know what that is. It's called What Are You Like? And right over here, we've got Arnie Cope. What are you like, Arnie?
Well, we'll find out.
We'll find out.
Exactly.
We've been friends a long time.
Yeah, we have.
But you were a little bit like the Scarlet Pimpernel. You were hard to find sometimes, because you were like the international man of mystery. You were traveling and doing this and that and the other and blah blah blah, and yeah.
Yeah, I was very fortunate. I had
Yeah.
the opportunity to travel, and but always available for you.
Oh, you see, I feel so special now. So let's start from the beginning.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's start from the very beginning. That was from Sound of Music.
But before we get into everything,
Oh, what now?
well, Arnie, the last few weeks, has brought us chocolate.
He has.
And
He's our dealer.
He is, but I noticed we're completely...
Yeah, I did have some chocolate for you, but
didn't eat it again, did you?
unfortunately, a moment of weakness.
Well, yeah, I would do the same thing.
Yeah.
We've all
right.
done it, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
Now, you're originally from Essex.
I am from Southend.
Did you walk around with white high heels, scuffed heels,
I can't say high heels.
bare legs in winter and a miniskirt?
Yeah, with long socks and the four-cornered hanky.
And an XR3i.
XR3.
The Ford, the sports, the car.
Oh.
No?
Couldn't afford a car.
Oh,
Well, back when I was a child,
When I was young.
we had to buy our own cars, didn't we? We did. We had to buy our own cars. Did you buy your own car?
Yes, of
Good.
course.
Well done. Well done.
Bought it from my mum.
Did you?
I did.
What was it again?
It was a Ford Escort, actually.
What was it?
But I still had to buy it off her.
That was like Racer Boy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Didn't we just call them Racer Boys?
Yeah.
I had a Cortina.
Everyone had a
That just
Cortina.
made
Yeah.
me laugh listening to that word 'cause I haven't heard that in forever. I had a Mini and then I had something else and I can't remember what that was. A lime green Mini.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
dear.
so yeah, I know.
Lime green.
It's lovely. It's
People
lovely.
saw you coming.
You sure did, with or without the Mini. But Essex.
Yes. Essex boys have got a bad rap,
Yeah.
or maybe not a bad rap, but it was a fun place. Parents were from East End of London,
Oh, right.
and a lot of them moved down into Essex. So it was fun childhood, and
Do you have any brothers or sisters?
I don't.
you're
So
only
I was the
child.
only one.
So now
Only one.
when did you leave the UK? What was the...
I left the UK in '78, actually.
Oh.
I was working at a casino in Southend, and someone came to work there who had just been in the Bahamas working, and they said, "Well, why don't you go to the Bahamas? Good weather, tax-free money."
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah.
I thought about it for about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
As you would.
And, everyone said why I shouldn't go there. Oh, it's all mafia and it's all this. And, so about 8 months it took, filling in paperwork to go and work there. And lo and behold, I went to Freeport in the Bahamas.
And how long
to
were you
work.
there for?
I was in Freeport for 15 years,
Whoa,
actually.
So you're
15
you're an
years.
expat that's,
I've actually
in quite a few
spent
places.
Yeah, I've actually spent more time out of England than in England.
In England.
Which is
That's crazy.
kind of strange.
But you haven't lost your accent.
No, I love
unlike
it.
me, who apparently keeps dropping these
Morphing.
weird... morphing
Well,
into
it's
something.
funny when people come here from England, they go, "Why are you talking with an American accent?"
Oh,
But you don't hear
Yeah.
it.
I don't hear
No.
it, but there's
I
certain
don't.
words.
Yeah.
Well, and we have to have those just to get by.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, to be
Absolutely.
understood. Sometimes
Yeah,
you do.
but
It's true.
once I'm around them for a while, the English comes out.
Yeah, you top it up. I always say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so you were still in gaming, yeah, in the Bahamas.
I was. I worked in a casino that wasn't 24 hours, so it gave us plenty of time to kind of party as well,
Nice.
which we took advantage of. Weather always good, so it was a fun place.
And you ended up here in Las Vegas.
I did. One of my ex-bosses actually was from Vegas, and he left, came back here, and he contacted me and he said, "Oh, there's a new property going to open. Ever thought of leaving the Bahamas?" So, I went, well, at some point I'm going to have to leave. And I was just getting married at the time.
Oh, yeah.
Which I'm not married now, but
Right.
at the time I was. And came out here for a day, had an interview that lasted 10 minutes.
That was it.
Yeah, and I said to my friend, and I went, "It's a waste of time me coming." He goes, don't worry.
Right.
And lo and behold, I got offered the job, but then it was, you can't get the job unless you've got green card.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
And you
We
can't
all-
get a
we all know
green
that.
card unless you got a
job.
unless you got a job.
We all know those challenges.
Yeah, so I was very, very fortunate that things kind of fell into place.
That's fantastic.
And came here and opened a big property here.
Can we say which one it is?
It's I can't
No,
really.
but a big one.
A big one that
That people
have,
would know.
That might have had a lion outside.
Okay.
But I can't say.
Right.
I can't say. I
Now,
can't
what
say.
position did you go in at?
I went in as what they call a pit manager, which
Yeah.
you have a dealer, you have a supervisor watches X amount of games. Pit manager watches an area. So
Is it
I went
stressful?
in. It was when we opened because it was so full. I mean, it was crazy. It was pretty intense.
I think the openings of casinos, though, are. I've been
Oh,
to
yeah.
a couple
So that would have
invites
been,
to those.
what year would that have been?
93.
93.
93.
And do you think that 'cause I mean, when you think about Las Vegas, historically speaking, and the idea of like a pit boss, if you want to give it that term, and you think of the mob. You think of all you think of everything that was salubrious about Las Vegas. By 93, had that completely turned the corner into sort of corporate world? Or?
I would say yes. By 93, it was definitely going more corporate.
Yeah.
Some the properties that were opening then were very highly regulated.
Yeah.
And it was.
And just when they were trying to get families in, everything went themed. Of course, you had Treasure Island, because it was the pirate theme.
It might have had a theme park, that casino.
It might have had a big theme park in the back.
That's right.
May have.
Yeah, but yes, they all went that direction.
Yeah.
Yes.
And of course there's the Aladdin and I mean, which was a classic name, but they built it out and really went theme heavy.
Yes.
And then by the sort of mid late 90s realized that didn't work. And they sort of abandoned the sort of family environment, almost theme park.
When
Las
I think
Vegas
about
type.
it, unless you've got a theme park in a city, what else is there for kids? Because you can't even stand in a casino with kids under 20. You are moved on.
You have to move.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So, and like you're saying, it is highly regulated. I think people think this is such a loose town, but it's so not a loose town.
No.
I mean,
No,
it
it's
is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, they went in that direction. Families.
Yes.
Right.
One of the properties you just mentioned, Treasure Island, was okay. You can have pushchairs going, prams.
Perambulators.
Being pushed around until the owner fell over one, and he went, and that's a true story. He went, that's it, no more.
Oh, wow.
So, and after that, it really kind of went the other way.
We've gone through some themes, haven't we? Like the family theme. Then we went through the totally themed out hotels, like you were saying, and then we went through. Well, the day clubbing came in, the DJs.
The what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
We went through that.
Yeah,
I still like that tagline. I mean,
Right.
it's like, it's not the kind of town that you're asking people to come to and, get their morals in order. Because that's not what people do.
No.
Because at one point they go, oh, I was in Vegas, you shouldn't be shared on social media. Oh, come on. It was the best tagline I think I've ever heard of for
And
the
it's
city.
still used.
It's still
used everywhere.
Yeah.
It's whereas, years ago, it was all casino, and we got some restaurants
That's
if you want to go.
Yeah, the focus
now,
is that.
Every independent department has their focus.
Yeah.
And now, I would say casinos are probably 30%, whereas they were 70%.
Yes.
Now, other departments are we've got restaurants and there's some gaming tables.
That's right.
So it's really,
So you really feel it's that kind of
absolutely,
Just big flip-flop.
absolutely. And some of the restaurants in town and chefs, they're some of the best in the world.
They absolutely are.
I will say that you come to Vegas, you can find any famous chef's restaurant here. I mean, Gordon Ramsay's. I didn't realize how big Gordon Ramsay's place was.
Oh, he's got
It's
the pub over
huge.
at. Does he call it pub? It is.
I think he does.
Yeah, over at Caesar's Palace.
Caesar's,
Huge.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. But I will say that because I think you start to see less table games.
Yes, yeah. I mean, now it's all, okay, this game is making X amount. What can we put there that will make more money?
It's about every square inch making money, isn't it,
Absolutely.
of the
And
property?
Well, and maybe that goes too far because I mean, there's this whole thing about charging for parking and charging.
Yes.
I mean, even, dare I say it, but the drinks prices
Oh
over the
my
last,
gosh, you're ridiculous.
let's say the
right
last
now.
10 years, maybe even less,
I mean,
well,
you could sit on a slot
crazy.
machine and get a free drink and it'd do a tip, and then that just disappeared. And then those prices started to go
yeah.
up. The parking, I think, is the big. Some of it's coming
That's
back
been
though.
the
The
thing.
free parking. I think they've realised.
they
Yeah.
are,
You
they
know,
are.
I think locals are very. We say protest with your money. So I've done it. I'm like, we used to hop from casino to casino. Can't pay parking
Right.
in every single one of them. It's crazy.
So if there's somebody like in your job that you discover is as a customer, as a gambler, is not sort of playing the game as they should do. I mean, it's not like the old days where they just like take you in the back alley and kick you about.
No.
So I actually kind of
Like it?
embrace
We do like that mob vibe.
Yeah, I
we
mean,
do.
That's
The
kind
threat.
of well, that's kind of what I like about Vegas is the fact that it does have a history and it's sort of a little infamy rather than anything else. And you know, and of course now it is a massive business and it is corporatized, but that's its roots. You know, that's where it started.
Absolutely, and it did happen.
It did,
Not
yes,
before I came here. That's you know, you were no, don't take me in the back room. You know, but now they just 86 you.
Oh, that's right. You get 86.
You know what 86 means?
No.
86 is a term that was used many years ago. And if you 86 someone, it was used when the mob was, running it. 86 means take them 80 miles out of town and 6 feet down.
under.
No,
you see, we
that's
love that, don't we?
I did not know that.
Yes, that's 86. So.
You see, that's what I love about the whole history thing.
But they still use the term, but they don't do that. 86.
I mean, surveillance in these hotels is
cameras everywhere.
Unbelievable.
I mean, it really is, you know. I mean, there's been incidents all around town with people grabbing chips and running for the door. But, you know, there's cameras everywhere. And they contact someone, they're cool. They're cool. In some ways, you know, there's been some.
Would you
very
get freaked
funny...
out though if you saw, if you were like as a pit boss and you saw someone not playing the game right? I mean, would it like get all your adrenaline going? And I would be all scared.
What when you say not right?
You know what you're doing. You're cheating.
Card counting.
Card counting. You know, it's not illegal.
Right.
You can't say you can't play because you're card counting. Right. You can say you can't play because you're too good for us.
Oh.
And you have the right to do that.
Every casino has that right. You know, it's private property.
Yes.
You know, we want you to play somewhere else, not here. So,
wow.
But, you know, there's some funny stories about everything in a casino, you know, over the years.
Did they call them high rollers or did they call them, was it whales?
Yeah, whales has been used over the past few years, but they're high rollers.
Yeah.
Either way.
So what's the kind of most bizarre or funny or story that you really shouldn't be telling but you're about to tell us?
Without mentioning any names.
Without mentioning
or
maybe mentioning names. I don't know.
I can't mention names. I can tell you one story of an ex-employee who decided to rob the cashier after he'd been gone for a month or two. And the thing about robbing the cashier in a certain casino was the cashier was right in the middle of the casino.
Okay.
So he said, rather than give me the money, give me the chips.
Oh.
Which, why would anyone...
You mean the ones that have got the name printed on the chip?
So he could never cash them if he got away with it. But the end of the story is the cashier was in the middle of the casino. He ran to the lobby, by which time security were there.
Yes.
Chips went all over the floor. And he valeted his car. So, needless to say, not the smartest of...
So ran out of the casino and then there's like this awkward sort of elevator music.
Well, he never made it to the car. He never made it to the car.
I almost would like to have seen him get that far just to see what would have happened next. It's like, can you just pause a second?
I told you to hold it up front.
Oh, that is so brilliant. Now,
well, I guess they would have. I mean, maybe his idea was to take the chips and then he could like sell them at.
But don't the chips have a chip in them?
Well, they do, but with chips that are stolen, a lot of casinos will just take the whole chips out of service, basically, and put new ones in.
And then if they show up,
where did you get them? Where did you get them?
So silly.
What
a silly Billy.
And I'll tell you one other story about a high roller. He loved eating M&Ms.
Okay.
And he had a private room where he played, and we had M&Ms for him, and he went to bed at, I don't know, midnight, came back at 4 a.m. and said, someone's eaten some of my M&Ms.
Right.
And we thought he was joking. What do you mean someone's eaten some of your M&Ms? He said, they're different. So he said, I'm not playing until you... So we had to go back, surveillance, watch it, and one of the supervisors had put his hand in and taken some M&Ms.
Did he know?
So
Oh my
then,
God.
after that, we just left M&Ms in the packets, and he had to open them himself. There's so many different funny stories.
Do you know of
that-
anyone that's written a book about working in casinos, like a tell-all, but
Or
they'd have to do it?
is there like a non-disclosure type of thing? I mean,
You have to be very careful. That's
Yeah.
why I can't.
I hope you're
Yeah.
being careful now.
Well, if not,
If not,
not,
you're
it's
our third co-hosts from here on in,
absolutely,
basically.
absolutely.
But you went from that position into international gaming.
International marketing. Yeah, I was more in the operation side.
Yeah.
Had worked in a few casinos for the same company, and had the opportunity to go into international marketing, which meant traveling to various places around the world.
Oh, yes.
Where we had customers, and we asked them, hey, do you have some friends who go to Vegas?
Yeah.
And we'll put a dinner on, we'll do this, that. So it was an interesting
Building relationships.
Absolutely. What's the difference one casino to another?
Yeah.
Normally just the carpet.
Right.
They all have gaming tables.
That's true.
So I was very fortunate, traveled a lot, met some interesting people. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I bet you've worked with a lot of celebrities. I know you can't mention them.
Seen a lot of celebrities.
Yeah, oh, okay.
Yes, seen a lot of celebrities. The place where I worked had a big arena, which I can't tell you which
Yes,
one it was.
yeah.
But they'd have award shows. They've had concerts. All
The celebs come in for that.
Yeah, and some of them do gamble.
Yeah.
And
How much is the biggest win or the biggest loss that you've seen yourself?
The biggest loss many years ago was over 10 million
Oh my goodness.
in one evening.
In one evening.
In one
Wow.
evening.
Good grief.
And-
He or she was having a bad night.
Yes, not a good
just
night.
a sligely
Yeah,
bad
a little
night.
bit.
That's a lot
and
of money.
the good stories are, the woman who came in and she bought in for like $700 and played all night, and in the end she had like $30,000 in front of her, and she had no clue because she had a few drinks
She
and
was
was
just
just piling
doing a
them
thing.
chips in front of her. And we went, do you know how much you have? No.
She had no idea.
So we told her, it's always good to have the good stories.
It is
So,
always
we
good.
want them to leave winning,
Right,
it's-
yeah. And to come back.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Absolutely.
well, it's been really interesting talking to you. I know we could be here for like hours on end.
Yeah. You could get me into trouble if.
Yeah.
We should probably quit while we're ahead.
Yeah, if we were at a
Yes,
bar
yes,
right now,
yes,
we were in
yes.
the pub, we'd be in a lot of trouble. But it's
Yeah.
been brilliant talking to you and catching up. And
Anytime.
you know,
My
and how
pleasure.
many years here in Vegas now?
25.
25, and this is what we like to call "What do you like?" This
What do you
segment.
like?
And what do you
like?
miss? What's the one thing you miss from the UK?
I've got to say, an English breakfast.
Ah,
I
like a
know
real
you.
one.
You know,
I know.
You can get
Going
the-
in, not going into a fancy place, going into a cafe.
Yeah.
English breakfast, please.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
Authentic.
yes.
You don't have to explain it. You just it is what it is.
it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's funny
Yeah.
what we miss, isn't it? You
I
know,
know,
but that's
I
home
know.
for us, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's been interesting, hasn't it? We've
I
got
love
your
it.
mum, we've had
Yeah.
Arnie
Yeah.
on a "What Are You Like" show today,
That's what it was.
and I guess we'll see everybody next week.
We will. Thank you, Arnie.
Thanks for
My
spilling the tea
pleasure.
with us.
Thank
My
you, Sam,
pleasure.
as always.
Thank you, Ian.
And we'll see you next week.
See you next
on
time.
Spill the Tea. That was awesome.
That was great.